Then now I'm going to discuss about the company setup, how we can set up the company in this country, and then I'm going to discuss here about the taxes. I'll take the question from you guys. If anything, you raise a question for the taxes. It's my details about my practice firm. It's Adept Accountants Limited, Chartered Certified Accountant. We are based on the South London, but we serve the client all over the UK. And we have some client even outside UK, European Union, like France and Spanish, like those people have a house in this country. And UK is a country who are basically attract the international investor as well. Like lots of American people, Australian people, they also have like company in this country. So that means we serve the client all over the UK. If you go to the website, you can see what kind of services we provide and about our customer reviews and everything. Regarding the company setup, basically, you know about the HMRCs. HMRC, they manage all the taxes. But whenever you set up the limited company, that means you need to report on the two organizations. One is the company house, one is the HMRC. Whenever you want to set up the company, basically, you can set up either in your site, or you can might be appoint an accountant. If you give you details for the accountant with the proposed company name, accountant can make the application in company house. Then from this year, basically before that, whenever accountant made the application, in most of the time it takes only 1 day. But from this year now it takes 1 to 3 days. When the accountant is going to submit the details, then whoever the proposed director, they will receive an email. If it's two director, both of the director will receive the email from the company house for the ID verification. ID verification means your passport, your driving license, face-to-face like picture with the smartphone. If you complete the ID verification within 1 to 3 working days, your limited company will set up. You will get a company registration number. And whenever you get the company registration number, so that means with that company registration number, you can online application for any like bank, or might be you can like visit the high street bank. And once the company registration you get, after 28 days or might be 3 weeks time, you will get another letter from the HMRC with the UTR number, unique tax reference number for the limited company. In this country, whoever doing the business, like most of the students, whenever they came in this country, they got an NI number, national insurance number. So with the NI number, you can only do the PYE job. But if you work as a self-employed, like this gentleman, he's working as an electrician, or might be if you're driving the cab, or if you have the rental income, so that means it's not reporting to the HMRC every month. So that means you need basically personal UTR number, personal unique tax reference number, and you need to report to your income to the HMRC every 1 year, which is the window is basically 6th of April to 5th of April next year. And also similarly, if you set up a limited company, might be you set up the limited company on 1st of February 25. So next year will be finished on 31st of January 26. You need to submit the company accounts within 9 months time. So in the company house, you're going to submit the accounts with the company registration number. In the HMRC, you're going to submit the accounts with the HMRC UTR number, unique tax reference number. So that means you will get the company registration number within 1 to 3 days. Whenever you get the company registration number, you will get the company house authentication code. It's like a 6-digit password. You can change the password anytime. If you want to make any changes in the company house, might be your address change, shareholding change, you need your authentication number, and company UTR number you'll get within 28 days. But as soon as you got the company registration number, you can apply for the bank account. Regarding the bank account, we advise basically most of the entrepreneurs to go to the high street bank. High street bank means if you have a bank account in the HSBC, Barclays, you can go to those bank and you can make the application in online. You don't need to do the ID verification, because whenever you have a personal account, your ID already bank basically verified your ID, so it will be easier for them. Basically, there are lots of online bank now, Manzo and Revolut, Starling. But the problem is that those bank account, whenever you're going to apply for the your like self-sponsorship license, you need a letter from bank might be confirmation letter. Online bank, they are very convenient, but you will not get the letter from them. So that's why we prioritize for the high street bank. Another problem is that online bank, they are very good, but anytime if they go for the liquidation or other thing, then it will be a big problem for you. Because sometimes the online bank, even in COVID time, 1 or 2 bank, they went to the liquidation. Because they don't have any branches. So suddenly your account is locked, might be you need a statement on tomorrow, your account is locked or anything, you can't do anything. But if you go to the high street bank, at least you can visit the branch, you can take the service from them. So this about the company setup. That means within 1 to 3 days your limited company will set up. Within 28 days you will get the UTR number, and the bank account hopefully you'll get within 1 to 2 weeks time. Now the next step is the PYE registration, pay as you earn. As soon as you got your company UTR number within 28 days and your company registration number, you can make application for the PYE registration. So PYE registration, it takes basically 4 weeks time. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks time. It depends on director ID verification with HMRC and everything, but ultimately accountant will do everything. Whenever they will make the application to the HMRC, within 1 week time, HMRC will send the acknowledgement with an acknowledgement reference number, and hopefully within 3 to 4 weeks they are going to process the PYE. If they don't process the PYE within 3 to 4 weeks time, then accountant can ring HMRC, accountant can speak HMRC and chase them with that reference number. And whenever the time length is basically 4 to 6 weeks, you can say. Whenever you get the PYE registration number, there are two reference. One is the employer PYE reference, one is the account office reference number. Employer PYE reference means ultimately whenever you go to the self-sponsorship visa, so that means you need the information for the employer PYE reference number. And whenever the accountant is going to run the payroll for you, they are going to submit the RTI, means you payroll in every month. That before 2013, the payroll most of the time it's submitted once in a year. But after 2013, HMRC, whenever the David Cameron government came in this country, they invested a lot of money for the HMRC IT infrastructure, and now they want the information every month. So whenever accountant basically submit the RTI real-time information, your payroll to the HMRC, it go with the account office reference number. And whenever you make the payment to the HMRC, it means we run the payroll for you, and every week, every month, your tax and NICs might be £300. So that means you need to make the payment to the HMRC. So that time you need the account office reference number. And whenever you are applying for the self-sponsorship visa, your company registration number and your company UTR number, bank account, and your basically PYE registration, these things you need to provide to the home office. So that means I already spoke to you for the company setup and PYE setup. Once these two set up, you can apply for the self-sponsorship. And as soon as you got the self-sponsorship visa, then you can run the business. Now the question is that whenever you run the business, so there are tax implication. One of the tax implication is the VAT. In this country, the VAT threshold is the £90,000. And whenever you cross the £90,000, you need to register for the VAT if the product is standard rated. Means basically some of the business, even though you cross the £90,000, you don't need to register for the VAT. One of them I can tell you, one of them is the child daycare services. If you provide the child daycare services, you don't need to register for the VAT. If your business is health related, means like care homes, you don't need to register for the VAT. But if your business are providing the services for the standard rated, might be you selling the IT products in the market, and you cross the £90,000, you need to register for the VAT. So means basically three types of tax: VAT, another one corporation tax, PYE tax. So I can say that for the self-sponsorship on the first year, most of them you are not going to reach the £90,000 realistically. So that means we can ignore the VAT one. Regarding the corporation tax, basically corporation tax is 19% and 26.5%. It was before £19,000 up to £300,000 profit, but now they changed because this country, you can say it's a welfare country. Welfare country means whenever you have the money, you earn the money, you cross the threshold for the personal allowance, you're going to pay tax to the HMRC. If you can't earn the money, basically government will help you. So that's how these countries work. So that's why the tax is a bit high. But on the other hand, whenever you're paying the tax and if the country is running smoothly, they can help you as well. Especially I can say one example in COVID time. I think you guys on that time, you guys was a student in this country then in COVID time. Might be some of them not. So in COVID time, whenever most of the business was closed, and UK is one of the hard-hit country in the COVID time, most of the business was closed. So that time basically government advised most of the employee to run the payroll for the employee and at least pay 80%. So that means whose basically salary is the 30,000 pound, and I'm the employer for them, and my business is closed. But still, I can run the payroll for them for 24,000 pound, and government is reimbursing me 24,000 pound as an employer. I have a 10 employee. I run the payroll for them. Government paid for everyone. So that's how these countries work. So, and that is the one reason they increase the tax. So the corporation tax. Now I can say might be on the first year your turnover is like 50,000 pound. If your turnover is 50,000 pound and you run the payroll for 38,700 pound, so that means you're like then you paid the accountancy fees and other thing. I can say might be like 45,000 pound is your expenditure. So out of 50,000, 45 is expenditure, 5,000 pound is your profit. So then 5,000 into 19%, which means roughly around 1,000 pound you have to pay the taxes. Another one is the PYE tax. I think all of you working or might be work in this country under the payroll, and you guys have an understanding for the pay slips. Whenever you see the pay slip, there are basically 3 types of taxes and one more deduction unless with some other thing, student loan and other thing. One is the personal tax. Whenever you cross the 12,570, and if you are on the basic rate band, you're paying 20% tax, which we call that employee tax. Another one is the employee NIC. Whenever in one job, your salary equivalent to the 9,600 pound in a year or 800 pound in a month, anything over 800 pound, you're paying the employee NIC. So that means if someone is running the payroll for you for the 2,000 pound, so I can say first 1,047, you don't need to pay the tax. Anything over 1,047, you have to pay 20% tax. I can say like for the 900 pound, you're paying the 180 tax. So that means in the 2,000 pound, 180 you're paying personal tax, and might be another 100 pound you're paying the employee NIC. So that's how it works. Means whenever you run the payroll for 38,700 pound, whenever you run the payroll for 38,700 pound, your tax will be 5,226. Your employee NIC, anything over 12,570, you have to pay the 8% employee NIC, which is 2,090 pound. So that means your total PY liability will be 7,316. Whenever you work for someone, they're deducting your employee tax and employee NIC. And whenever you're paying the employee NIC, employer has to also pay the NIC. So that means whenever you run the payroll for 38,700 pound, that means basically 7,316 is your tax and NIC, and another 4,084 pound is the employer NIC that you have to pay. So that means basically 7,000 and 4,000 is roughly around 11,000 pound. But there are one option for the employer NIC, means these two you have to pay 5226 2099. Like 2090. These 29,600 means anything over 9,100 you have to pay 13.8% employer NIC. Employer is your company and you are the employee. There are two different entities. If your company employ one more person, at least for the 1 month, you can claim the employer NIC allowance. So that's how government was basically encouraging to have a more employment in this country. So that means if you are the only employee for the company, then your tax is basically 7,000 and 4,000. But if you have 2 employees, one might be work only for the 1 month. So whoever run the payroll, your accountant, they can select employer NIC allowance. They just need to put one tick. Whenever employer NIC allowance they tick, so then ultimately this NIC liability will offset with the employer allowance. So that means whenever ultimately PY liability is your like 7,316. So in the limited company, as I mentioned, there are 3 tax. VAT, you don't need to register for the VAT unless you cross the 90,000 pound. Corporation tax, if you make a profit, you have to pay the corporation tax only on profit, not on the sale, which is 19%. It means 50,000 pound is your turnover, might be 45,000 expenses. So then 5,000 is profit, you're going to pay 1,000 pound tax. Only issue is the PYE tax you have to pay, because even the corporation tax might be you will make a loss, because whenever you run the payroll for 38,700 pound, you will pay your accountancy fee, your traveling, your mobile bill. These all are the allowable expenses. Business insurance, if you buy a laptop for the business purpose, if you buy a mobile for the business purpose, your mobile bill, those things. There are lots of things that you can claim and you can get a relief from the corporation tax in a legal way. But the PYE tax ultimately you have to pay. So how the PYE tax is working? Basically, PYE tax you have to pay every 3 months. Means, as I mentioned, that the window is from the April to March. So doesn't matter when your limited company is set up. So that means April, May, June, these 3 months PYE liability you have to pay within the 19th of July. July, August, September, these 3 months PYE liability you have to pay within the 19th of July, August, September, you have to pay within the 19th of October. So every 3 months PYE. So that means basically these 7316, if you have to pay quarterly, so roughly it's around might be 2,500 pound every 3 months you have to pay. Now you might have ask a question that you got the company set up, you got the UTL registration, you have an accountant, but if you don't have a business, then what are you going to do? That might be, even though Habib Bhai can answer this question, but I'm just from the accounting part, I'm just telling. There are one IR35 rule in this country that taken place from 2019 or maybe 2020. So before IR35, most of the people in this country, especially doctor, IT specialist, whenever they work in the NHS, they work in the Bank of England, they used to tell the employer that I'm working for my limited company, rather than you paying and run the salary for me, you can pay to my limited company. So ultimately, so that means if you have a job, it's not the Sainsbury's or Tesco, might be like, this employer, Habib Bhai, if you work for him, you can tell them that, look, I have a limited company. Rather than you running the payroll, you can make the payment to my limited company. So your salaries might be 2,000 or 3,000 pound in a month. So rather than they run the payroll for you, they're going to basically transfer the salary to your limited company. From the limited company, you run your payroll, you're going to take your own salary, which is 38,700 basis. So that means, so now these IR35 rule, what they did now, so that's how it was worked up to some time. Then in 2019 and 2020, Rishi Sunak, he told that according to IR35 rule, most of the people, they can't work as a like self-employed. Basically, government will check whether they are basically self-employed or not. One of them, IR35 limitation is that if you work only for the Habib Bhai and 80% of income, your 80% of income is coming from him, then according to HMRC, you are not the self-employed. Even though HMRC have some drawbacks as well, means whenever you set up a limited company, might be you have to have a certain time to prove that whether you are self-employed or not. It might be 2 years. Because you might can tell HMRC, look, I start the business on February 25, and in March, how can you tell that I'm not the self-employed? I just started business and he's my client, Mr. Habib. So might be in April, I got another client. So that's why you have a time, 2 years, or might be, you can say 18 months, which means you can prove yourself. So how you can prove? You can work for him, and if you work for another 1-2 employee, then you can tell them, look, I'm working for 3-4 customers, so they can run the payroll for me. So that means I'm working for my limited company. So that's how might be you can set up the business. So that means ultimately, whenever they're going to pay you, they are not going to deduct the taxes. If Habib Bhai give you a job for 38,700 pound, if he run the payroll, then he run payroll for the 38,700, but you will got the net payment. Now, if he transfer the payment to your limited company, he is not going to pay you the net. He is going to transfer the 38,700 gross. And from where you can run your payroll, you can also transfer your taxes to the HMRC. So that's how it works. If you can come to the next, okay, 1/6. This employer NS allowance is basically 5K, but from April 24, it will be 10K. So that means if you have a more than one employee, you can avoid this one, 4084. So ultimately within the tax, basically your tax is basically 7316 mostly. I think that's all about your limited companies, accounting and other things. So how an accountant can help you to your basically company setup and other things. So these are from my side, these are the final discussion. Then I'll take the question from you guys. As an accountant, basically We can help you to set up the limited company. We can help you to register your company for the payroll. We can run the payroll for you monthly, because whenever you need to run the payroll, it need to run minimum monthly. The employer can run the payroll monthly basis, and or might be every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, even every weeks as well. The healthcare agency, they're running the payroll on weekly basis. So as accountant, we can also run the payroll for you. We can send you the reminder whenever you have any filings in HMRC outstanding or is close to the deadline. We will send you the reminder for the limited company accounts as well. And whenever we see that your income is quite high, might be you're earning around 100,000 pound in your limited company, and your tax is around like 10-15,000 pound, then we can also offer you the tax planning session. In the tax planning session, basically what we do, we take all the details for the client, and we see that whether there are any gap, or whether client can claim any allowances or other thing. Basically, the tax is quite high, that is one thing. On the other hand, if you have a more income, and if you discuss with the accountant, then if you have a tax planning beforehand, then you have a more control on the taxes. More control means how you can save the tax, might be rather than you have earning 100,000 pound, but you're like, for your living expense you don't need that much money, so you might can transfer the money to the pension pot, private pension pot. So there's that private pension pot is the allowable expenses. So it means rather than you withdrawing 50,000 pound, you might withdrawing 40,000 pound for your living expense, 10,000 pound you transferring to the pension pot, but that 10,000 pound you like for your limited company, it's allowable expenses. Tribal benefit, it's another thing, it's a very small amount. Every director, they can withdraw 50 pound in every 2 months. In a year, 300 pound. Any gift card, Amazon, Sainsbury, Tesco, any gift card you can buy from the shop, from your limited company bank account, you can do your own shopping, it's allowable expenses. Your telephone charges, you can set up the direct debit from your limited company if you have only one phone. End of the year might be, if you tell accountant that my telephone charges is 50 pound a month, so it's 600 pound, but like 75% is for the business purposes, so accountant can take 75% as a business expenses, so it is allowable expenses. If you don't have an office but you're working from home, whenever you're working from home, might be you have a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house, you living, you paying a rent for 3,000 pound or 2,000 pound, might be you paying rent. So whenever you rented a office place, might be 300-400 pound in a month, so accountant can apportion that one, that how much is your cost basically for the business purposes. So according to use, might be they can claim those expenses. So those things we are helping you. And any director in this country, they have to submit one self-assessment end of the year. Self-assessment means whenever you're running the payroll 38,700, it's basically reporting to HMRC on monthly basis. But as a director, you have another option that you might can withdraw the dividend from the limited company. So that's why HMRC expecting all the director, they're going to submit the self-assessment, they're going to declare their untaxed income. Untaxed income means like dividend. If you don't have any dividend income, it will be nil return. So those things we're helping. Now from you guys side, any question, you can ask me the question.
For the 5K employer allowance, if I hire one more employee, that time I will achieve it. But in that case, like I do have to pay the employer NIC for that employee, right?
No, employer NIC you don't have to pay.
Okay.
Means uh, means basically you set up the limited company on like February. So that means, and you start running the payroll from the might be April, because meanwhile you got the PY registration. And April, May, June you run the payroll only for you.
Yeah.
So that means your employer NIC is applicable, and might be you paid the employer NIC on that time. But in June or July, you recruited someone.
Okay.
So then if the accountant take the employer NIC allowances, so that means whatever the PYE liability before, it will reverse on that time.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because the window is for the whole year. Within the year, if you have a more than one employee, it will allow Alex. But even though basically, like the best course of action is then, if you should tell your accountant, because if you don't tell, so they will not claim the NIC allowance. You might can tell them, please make sure that you claim the employer NIC allowance. I'll have an employee on might be mid of June or maybe July. So that means rather than it's amending after 3 months,
Yeah.
if from the month one, if it's not deducted, that will be better for you, isn't it?
Okay.
Yes, any other question? Any questions, brother? Ask me anything.
From 5K, it will be 10K, right?
Yeah, it will be 10K from the April 25. Even the April 25, their basically tax will be high for the employer NIC. Now it's basically 9,100.
Yeah.
Now the Rachel Reeves, the finance minister, whenever she had a new budget on October, she mentioned that it will be from 5,400 from the April 25 onward. Okay, so that employer NS will be high, but the allowance is also high. Okay, if you go to the last slide, very last slide, please. Okay, these are my office number 020348833736, my mobile number, and my email address in here. We're going to take 64-8 form, that means which you going to sign, and we'll send it to the HMRC. So anytime if we ring HMRC on behalf of you, like might be your PYE issues or other thing, sometimes HMRC had issues with the client, so that means we can like deal with the HMRC. If we tell that we are from the Adapt account text and these are the client detail, they will check the 64- annual meeting, unlimited theme support, confirmation statement. Every year you need to submit one confirmation statement to the company's house, which is not accounts. Accounts is a different thing. Confirmation statement means you need to confirm that your all the information is updated. There are 34 company house projects, tax planning, quarterly meeting, registered office address. These all kind of service we provide. So anytime if you guys need any information, you can email me, you can ring me. I will answer your questions. I'm finishing with them.